Hey guys, this is Lorenz of the Ketones and Coffee Podcast. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of this great content. For this, we have a very special guest on our podcast who is a true leader in the field of mental health. Our guest is the CEO of the Kelly Mental Health, a private mental health clinic based in Thunder Bay, Ontario, that specializes in treating trauma-related issues using individually tailored evidence-based treatments. Their mission is to empower individuals to become the best versions of themselves. In fact, their clinic was voted the best psychology clinic in 2022 by the community of Thunder Bay, a true testament to the high quality care and services they provide. Our guest also runs the KMH Wellness Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing wellness and improving the quality of life in Thunder Bay. Through this foundation, they are working to eliminate barriers to compassionate and effective mental health services in their community. Her commitment to mental health advocacy and community outreach is truly inspiring. I can't wait to hear from her and learn from her insights and expertise. I'm so excited for this. I'm here with Linda Kelly. Linda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Linda, what an honor. What an honor to have you on today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we're here today to talk about, the mental health issues that are, so rampant in our communities today. And as a fellow Canadian, it's always a pleasure to have someone from our own community join us here today. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a big bio that you gave me. So.
It's great. I am just excited to have you on. And in fact, you're actually the second Canadian I've had the privilege to interview on the show. And so I'm really excited about this conversation. We'll get started here. So this topic is particularly special to me because that's why I love to have you on the show is I've been on the other side of therapy. What happened to me was, just to briefly talk about my story here, like yourself, I left a safety of a steady job that also dominated my life for 5 years. And I was on a high stress environment. And then one night I experienced panic attack, and I stopped sleeping for 3 straight days, and this led to a full blown manic psychosis for me, and which was determined to be related to stress. Um, fear took over my life at the time for a few years, and it took me a few years in therapy before I could, find a doctor who practices cognitive behavioral therapy. And then later, the ketogenic diet, which eliminated all my symptoms. Isn't that amazing?
Incredible.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Metabolic Mind, the Bazuki family. They run a foundation that funds practitioners to run scientific research, and it's essentially a grassroots movement. But their son Matthew had a similar experience when he was a teenager. Then they stumbled upon the ketogenic diet, and his symptoms went away. It's a fascinating story, and I recommend everyone checking it out on YouTube if you're interested. Metabolic Mind by Bazuki Family Foundation. I truly believe that your practice is already changing people's lives, and the more practitioners learn about evidence-based treatments like the ones you offer, the better. And that's what we hope to achieve today, to create awareness, first of all, especially here in Canada. So love your story. So Linda, we'll get to your story here. You're a woman on a mission, and I really admire your approach to treating mental health issues with evidence-based, individualized. I love that individualized, tailored approach. Your clinic incorporates, the ketogenic diet into your practice is not only life-changing, but it's life-saving. I'm sure our listeners would love to know more about the pivotal moments in your life that have shaped your approach. Can you share with us your personal journey of how you got into the mental health field first?
Sure. Getting into the mental health field, I think I kind of was born into it, coming from a family, a large family where there was a lot of dysfunction present. And there's some points, usually in our adolescence, where we start to realize that, the way that people treat each other maybe isn't so good, and that people sometimes are driven by trauma to be sometimes really terrible to each other and to themselves. And so, I came from that knowledge and that firsthand experience of uh, dysfunction. We called ourselves just a loud family, and it was mostly, if she ever hears it, it's my mom and her family. But it was interesting to be in it, and then to go into the mental health field where Psych 101, they say, don't go home and start diagnosing everybody. But I just thought, I'm seeing my relatives in these write-ups and just wondering. And, I've now been in this field for 15 years, and I'm learning every day. I'm constantly learning. I was saying yesterday, it's kind of like math in a way. If you start to notice the patterns, you can really start to understand that, oh, there's a formula for this. There's a dynamic present, and there's a way to change this for the better. So mental health was kind of always my aim. I went into the social work education, and actually, I mean, I live in Thunder Bay, born and raised. I couldn't get a job after getting my master's degree. I ended up basically temping, and I was temping for a reception, and ended up in a mental health clinic, and then worked my way up from there. I was their secretary, and then I was their clinical coordinator, and then I was a psychotherapist, and then I was their business development director. But at that point, uh, we really began to see things differently. And so I went out on my own, and I created my own practice. I hired my own employees, and really tried to create a different kind of environment for people where we could understand trauma in a real human, down to earth way. And it's been incredible. It's been nonstop, the learning, the experiences, the getting called out on my own mistakes, and really connecting with people in an authentic way.
How long has been the business running now, the clinic?
Right. So I I left my job March 30th,
Mm.
2016. I incorporated Kelly Mental Health on April 15th. So
Mm.
it was very rapid fire. I leased an
Love it.
eight office building. A couple months later, I hired people, and yeah, I mean, we've kind of gotten to this point now. We're about, we have the 8 offices that are full. We started an internship program. COVID had a major impact on our client caseloads, where we were previously bringing people in from out of town in the remote fly-in communities. They
Mm.
were coming to see us. COVID shut everything down. And then all around us in our local community, people needed help. And so it was just like a complete changeover.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been a few years. I'm always kind of questioning how long it's been.
So, you talked about that pivot into, did you start um, online counseling when COVID was happening?
Yes, some. I found, although my practitioners in the state, or my colleagues in the States, they have said people have really embraced the change to
Mm.
online, but I found actually
Mm.
different. I found people, especially with the trauma work we do, it's you can get plenty
Yep.
done in video counseling. Phone counseling, not as effective, and it's more difficult for the practitioner to really tap into what the person's feeling and going
Right.
through. Face to face is really where people have a more
Right.
authentic, genuine
Of
connection.
course. Of course. Of course.
Mhm.
Now you talked about leaving a steady job to pursue your passion. It's not an easy decision, of course, but it seems like the ROI for you is truly massive. We can see that today. Your clinic, talked about even receiving awards for your work, which is a testament to the positive impact you're having in the community. As I
Mhm.
understand it, you originally intended to provide counseling part time, right? And doing what you love, but
Yeah.
instead, you've built this thriving community of like minded individuals through your clinic, your nonprofit organization. What was it that motivated you to keep growing your business? And then how, it's a short amount of time. You talked about that in the beginning. And how did you build such a strong sense of community among your clients and your staff? Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Good question. I think when you leave a full-time job, you kind of light the fire where you don't have the option of failure. You just
Mm.
go. And that's where like I said, I had leased this huge office building, and I didn't even have all the offices outfitted. I was running around like on Marketplace and Kijiji getting used furniture to put stuff in this office before I even hired anybody. It was because I was now on the hook for this amount of money that was due. I had no choice in my mind. So there were some people that came on board, came to the team for a short period of time, and they moved on. And that was always hard. But every time we brought someone new, they've brought something to the team and helped us grow. So it's kind of like you had to, because you don't have an option. Our community needs help. Thunder Bay is the hub of all of Northwestern Ontario. And that means 40, 50, 60,000 people that don't live in Thunder Bay come here for healthcare. And then our own city is being voted sometimes one of the most dangerous cities in Canada because of our murder rate and our, that rate of violence among one another and addictions. And our community is a beautiful place. We have so much here that I love. I want to raise my kids here, but we need help. Like we need to get healthy. So I just felt from day one of even working at the other place, and I would have been a lifer there had things worked out, but I needed this to work because our community needs it.
No, I love your practice so much because you don't settle for what you know historically. You said in the beginning, it's like math, you're continuously learning, right? And that is one of the symptoms of somebody who are actually doing this for other people. You talked about community, and I love this quote on your website. You said, make decisions that will leave you with least amount of regret, which is a powerful statement for people, right? Because when somebody hears this and sees this, and you also talked about, and there's another quote that relates to this quote. It says, the person you are meets the person you could have become. Is one of those, you're talking about regret, right? You don't want any regret. You don't want to leave anything on the table. You want to do everything that you can for you to be successful. And, talking about success for people, who are helpless and held back by fear. I was somebody who was held back by fear and come to a point where I realized that I'm affecting other people around me. And you talk about one person can change everyone around them. If somebody is being negative, you can pass that into another person. And if you're somebody who are always down and affected by just your people around you, then you will absorb that energy. And can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I love this quote here. One person can change everyone around them. What do you mean by that in your own words?
When a person is in pain, it's difficult for them to think beyond themselves. We become egocentric, where our worldview kind of crunches in, and it's just like if you're sitting there with a broken leg, you can't think about how everybody else is doing. That's a biological mechanism to try to survive. And so, in our world today, we're talking about psychological pain. A study released just this week said that it was something along the lines of depression and suicidality in girls and women in the US is something like 21 to 25% of them are experiencing depression and suicidality, which is insane. Like it's just people are unwell. And so when an unwell person is faced with the challenges of just everyday functioning, we become more rigid. So something comes at us, someone requests something of us. Instead of us being able to be flexible and consider the information and go, okay, maybe maybe it's a little bit too much for me to help you out with this right now, but maybe I can help you next week. An unwell person is going to have a strong emotional reaction. They're going to feel obligated. They're going to feel angry. They may react in a way that damages that relationship. So that's what I mean, where one person does affect everyone around them. Someone that is in a good place psychologically is going to be able to keep relationships solid and
Yes.
flexible at the same time. You can do so much for the people around you and for yourself.
Mm.
You can even
Yeah.
pave the way for someone that is actually struggling with depression because you know, and you're
Yeah.
not going to go, hey, suck it up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. You know what? When I was struggling with depression, I was talking to one of my mentors, and she told me that I know you're gonna be okay because you're talking about it. I know you're gonna heal from this because you're talking about it. What do you think about that? Is there any truth in that as somebody who practices, mental health and in the mental health field? Um, does it help to talk to somebody about your problems?
I'm going to give you the typical mental health gray
Mm,
answer because I'm
mm,
going to say yes and no.
mm,
If you are in the midst of chaos
mm,
and your survival, your wellness, your ability to just wake up tomorrow morning depends on your ability to compartmentalize and shut it down and not deal with it, then you got to do that. But when things are safe enough where you can start to unpack a little bit, what you're doing then is you're taking the power away from the feelings by putting it into words. You
mm,
know, you're, instead of being overwhelmed by this like dark negative swirling cloud of
yeah.
things that you feel like you can't handle, we're able to then put it into words, take its power away, and then figure out what we need to do to get through it.
I love that, taking its power away. What are the um, what are the practices that you teach your clients to take the power away from, maybe fear, doubt, anxiety? I know fear is a big thing, the biggest thing, and
Mm.
self doubt. What are the practices that are, actionable items for our listeners today that they can start taking that power away from that?
Mhm. uh, I get teased sometimes because I'm always telling people just breathe, and it sounds so
I love
silly.
that.
But I was explaining to someone yesterday, it's more than just, it's more than just doing yoga. What you're doing by breathing is you are doing an opposite action. So your body is reacting to stress like it's a physical threat. It's tensing
Mm,
up. Your stomach is all tight. You're ready to run or to fight. That's a physiological process that we can't escape. So we get that reaction when we get, the ding of an incoming email or a text message that says, hey, we got to talk. And that's not something that you can fight or run away from. So when you breathe and you relax your abdominal muscles, you are actually signaling a hormonal change to your brain to say, we're safe. And when we take that breath and we send that signal to the brain to say we're safe, that means that our emotional mind that has taken over, that's trying just like nothing else, just to keep us alive, can
mm,
calm down and we can access logic. And we can
mm,
start to see things as less than catastrophic, a little less
mm. Yeah.
urgent, a little bit where we become more centered that way. So that is one big thing. Honestly, the power of your breath makes a big
Mm.
difference. It's the loosening of the muscles that are engaging because your body thinks it's going to get attacked.
Can we go through one exercise for our listeners here that they can do for a quick and easy way to breathe? What are the some of the practice that you do, and what any particular breathing techniques that you have?
Well, I mean, anxiety reduction techniques usually involve things like abdominal breathing.
Mm,
So basically, it's like balloon breathing, just like a little kid. You ever look at a kid when they're taking a big deep breath or about to go yell at you or something? Their bellies
yeah.
get really big. That's what we want to do. Most adults, I know most adults that struggle with their weight in particular, they're kind of crunching up their stomach all the
Mm,
time. So, to manage anxiety, the number one thing is we're going to notice. So, doing a body scan from the top of your head, taking a long, deep breath, actually pushing your belly out as you take that deep breath and releasing, and feeling yourself just settling into the seat. And another deep breath, again, pushing your belly out as you breathe, because that's the lowest part of your lungs, the diaphragm, and just relaxing into the chair. And for many people, just 2 deep breaths makes a big difference in all of a sudden
mm,
realizing, where am I? Noticing the color of the walls. So there's another grounding technique. It's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very,
mm,
very well known. And again, this is to be used in the moment. when
Yeah.
we're very stressed, very anxious. So 5 things around you that you can see. Saying the words in your mind. I see the color of the walls. I don't notice the color of the walls when I'm stressed out. Okay, what color are these? Okay, canvas walls.
Mhm.
I notice the curtains. I notice the computer screen. I notice
Mhm.
this message screen.
Mhm.
4 things you feel. So the feeling of where you're sitting, or the textures that are touching your skin, the temperature of the air. 4 things you feel. 3 things that you hear. There's always more that we can hear that we don't notice. And the longer you sit and you breathe and you relax, the more your senses are awakened and can be more in the moment. 2 things that you can smell. Sometimes there's different smells surrounding us, but they're very sensory, very, very powerful, especially in memory. And then sometimes it's just one thing that you taste. And if you don't taste anything, it's one word that kind of brings this all together. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique is very, very simple to find online. There's lots of YouTube videos and lots of even just a piece of paper written. We have it on our website. Those are things that we use in the moment when we're very anxious, very stressed, or just angry. I notice sometimes I might use them when I react to something that someone says, and I take a breath and I go, oh, okay, whoa,
Yeah.
I'm in that mode that I'm over the top, because my mind is just
Mhm.
has been running on empty for too long.
I love that. I experienced it right there. It's an instant feeling that it gives you, and it's amazing how you
Mhm.
articulated that. Thank you so much for that. KellyMentalHealth.com for the techniques. Um,
Mhm.
Ketogenic diet. Let's talk about that. There are so many factors that
Okay.
contribute to balanced mental state, and your website has a fantastic quote that I love the quotes on your website. That I really that really captures the essence of what it takes to achieve that balance. You advise people to manage their feelings, take care of themselves. Number 2, sleep when you're tired, eating the right foods, observe the law of diminishing returns. I love this concept there. A new concept for me. And then enjoy the ride. I couldn't agree more. Especially eating the right foods. On that note, I want to bring up Dr. Chris Palmer here. Are you familiar with his work, Dr. Chris Palmer?
Some,
Mhm.
in some ways, I feel a little bit behind the times, because I learned about the ketogenic diet and all of the, high profile players in 2017, 18. And there's always more, and it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a grassroots movement that they're starting here, and he's for our listeners here. Here's a Harvard psychiatrist and researcher who has been pioneering the use of medical ketogenic diet in treatment of psychiatric disorders. So the ketogenic diet has been used for hundreds of years to treat epilepsy in children, and over 100 years, and more recently it's been shown to have a powerful impact on mental health. And I experienced its power firsthand, as having a major depression dissipated, and on the first couple of months, energy metabolism is at its core of this. I want to get to how you were able to stumble upon a ketogenic diet. Can you tell us about when you first discovered the benefits of the ketogenic diet for mental health? Um, how did that come about?
I think I found it on Reddit, to be honest. Yeah, December 31st, 2016. So I was just that first few months into starting my clinic. And I have struggled with obesity since I was a child. My family, there's a lot of disordered eating, a lot of diabetes in my family. Not really drinkers, not really drug users. Tend to be people that use food as therapy. And so obviously that sort of New Year's resolution was, okay, I got to drop some weight. I need to change something. So I had stumbled upon it. And there's a really great keto forum on Reddit, and they've actually expanded to the 2X keto. So it's kind of women only. And then there's Discord groups, and it's endless now. Uh, So I basically, like I do with anything, I got obsessed with it for a while. I read everything there was to know. I followed, Dr. Georgia Ede and,
Yes.
Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz and basically everybody that has something to say about it, Maria Emmerich, so much that just suddenly made sense to me. And I had incredible success. And part of it obviously was the fact that you are calorie counting in the beginning, but keto for me had created a situation where for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was a slave to food, that I could actually cut back on what I was eating and feel satiated and not get the shakes 2 hours after I ate and not feel like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? I could go all day without eating and not notice because my nutritional needs were met. And then I became more clear headed. I lost a lot of weight. I kept it off. I was just, I felt like I was an incredible version of myself. And I had the
Mhm.
capacity to learn. I had the capacity to improve my relationships. And just so much changed for me. And I very much believed in it. So
Mhm.
prior to this, I had never brought up a ketogenic diet in my practice because, as a psychotherapist, I have to stay in my lane.
Yes.
But we do talk about making sure that you get adequate nutrition. And so when I started to try to go get some training in disordered eating, because of course, hey, this is my background. This is my family dealing with trauma by eating. I was really upset at what they were teaching practitioners because they were teaching practitioners that there is basically no way to lose weight long term with any kind of restriction. They were throwing this idea of the ketogenic diet or proper nutrition out the window. They were talking about the set point theory and things like trying to include all sorts of ultra processed foods because, hey, if you don't include it, you're going to feel restricted and then you're going to binge. And my experience was that if I didn't take it out of my diet, then I would binge. Like that, it was a trigger. It was like an addiction.
Yes. Yes.
So that was really, really hard to sit there while that is the information that's being put out there in the world. However, I do feel that at this point, eating disorder treatment needs to be split
Mm.
with more restrictive eating being a different approach as opposed to binge eating. Because binge eating is really where I'm coming from and seeing that as the trauma focus. So my experience with ketogenic diet actually went on from there because I had a series of health issues and setbacks specific to miscarriage. And then I had two back-to-back pregnancies. And of course, we know during the first bit of pregnancy, it's kind of whatever you eat, just eat it to survive. And I would say that I went off the rails. I have regained some weight. And it's been difficult from a mental health perspective, a psychological perspective, to recommit to strict keto because I
Mhm.
have so many demands on me. Because now I have two businesses, a husband, three children, and two very, very needy dogs. um, but in January of this year, I started back on keto, and immediately I just felt that
Mhm.
cathartic feeling of I'm in control again. I'm not a slave to my hunger. And it
Mhm.
was really, really interesting then to go back to this thing that had worked for me and to realize, wow, this is an ancestral way of eating. This is how our bodies evolved to eat. And all the other stuff, the letting in of the processed foods, it is an addiction trigger for so
Mhm.
many people.
And I commend anybody who um, choose this way of living because it is not an easy change. It might be a simple switch here and there, but it's not an easy change. Obviously we are navigating times where there's just a lot of triggers around us, right? If you live in a household that um, that doesn't eat the same way as you do, that can be a trigger for you. You going out at the restaurant, going to the grocery store, or just walking outside, you see all of these establishments where it is not you know very much very healthy for an individual, and that is testament for your uh you know commitment to your work. You talked about you have two businesses, you have a family, um, keto really helps with, giving you a lot more energy, a lot more, no more, less brain fog, more focus, and
Mhm.
in turn more productivity. I want to
Mhm.
talk to you about what led you to exploring this approach. Now I know incorporating a focus of treatment of mental health issues using a ketogenic diet. It's a unique approach that I'm sure has, come with its own set of challenges. And how have you seen the impact of this way, uh, impacting the lives of your clients?
Well, I would say that since training with Dr. Eid on the use of ketogenic diet and mental health, it's been something I have approached gingerly. I've
Mm,
been very careful about because it is a big change, and you do need support around you if you're going to venture into this way of eating. And just depending on how strict you want to be, I mean, one of the things that I do also in a little bit of my off time is oversee a Keto Thunder Bay group on Facebook, which it's not the most active group right now, because usually people get active at the beginning of the year and then they get too busy. But it's something that I am a big advocate of in using this to help people in dealing with
mm,
trauma as well, because it just creates that sense of clear-headedness. And um, basically
mm,
it's different for everybody. Some people are ready
mm,
to make a change in their diet and some people are not. But the work that she had shown us as a group, and now of course we're part of this worldwide community that can use this in practice, is the incredibly positive effects that it has on people that are dealing with severe disorders like schizophrenia, even impacts on autism and in abilities to, and dementia as well, ability to articulate, ability to focus your thoughts, even positive impacts on ADHD. And there are studies showing this. It's just because dietitians are generally not allowed to promote this kind of a diet, because the College of Dietitians has
right.
final say on what they're able to put out
Mm,
there. It's not something that you see promoted very often.
mm. That's right. That's
Mhm.
right. And it's it's hard, right? I know um it is, there's some challenges to this. And like you said, it's controlled by the associations, and you can't really say much about it because there might be repercussions, and people might uh take offense in talking about their nutrition. Have
Mhm.
you had pushbacks from clients? How were you able to, you did say that you suggest clients to try, nutrition. Um, uh, have you ever got any pushback, or what, maybe any positive, uh, you know,
Mhm.
responses from clients? Any feedback?
Yeah. So one of the ways that I approach it is to talk about a
Mm-hmm.
nutrient dense diet.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the pushback can be from people that are that eat in a, like, say, ethical veganism,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where unfortunately, as much as I have all the empathy in the world for people uh, that go vegan for for the animals and for what they feel is health, I look at that as a diet that lacks essential nutrients, amino acids, vitamins. It will, without supplementation and without your body's ability to absorb those supplements effectively, they will
Mm,
negatively impact your mental health. Whereas something that is more nutrient dense,
right.
basically you're giving your body not only the fuel, but the building blocks that it needs
Mm,
to work the way it's supposed to. So sometimes if I'm not necessarily offering ketogenic, like a strict ketogenic diet, what I may point people in the direction of is letting them know that if you can meet your nutritional needs first,
mm,
everything else tends to fall into place. Just like if you can get enough sleep, you're going to function better in the day. If you can reduce the amount of stress that you're under, you're going to have more control over the things
mm,
that are pushing you emotionally. So
mm,
some people will come to me and they will ask about the ketogenic diet. Those people, okay, here you go. Here's the information. I'm supportive to you in the session. outside of that, that's just one tool in the toolbox. We are working on trauma processing in the session and building up all of those tools that you need when, you know, you're out in your vehicle going from place to place and suddenly you get triggered by a trauma. Well, maybe for many people, going on a diet like this is going to cut down on the amount of excess stress in the body, the cortisol levels in the body. Maybe it's going to take away indigestion that tends to come up when we eat stuff that's not so good for us, or a food-like product. And it's just one more tool, like I said, one tool in the toolbox.
Awesome.
Linda, my thing is giving people options. You know, therapy is great. I love it. People need it, as I did when I was struggling. But we did talk about, there's 4 pillars of health that I want to talk about now. Food is one of the biggest things. You also talked about on your program sleep, stress, reducing stress, and movement is very important. You know, mental health counselors may be discouraged from discussing, you know, dietary therapy, you know, as a treatment option. But this movement that, you know, you mentioned Dr. Georgia E, great people there, right there. You talked about other folks that are leading the way in, this is a grassroots movement that they're starting, and there's a lot of you know, pushback, of course, from, you know, whatever it is, right? And we you just have to keep talking about it, and having you on the show today is a true testament that this could be an option for people. And because I have family members that are in therapy that I want to help, right? And of course, we want to give them more options as they continue on this journey, right? For me, life is too good to be depressed. And if we have options for people, if we can make people's lives better through food, through reducing, you know, just talking about educating them about what they can do, what are other options that they can do so that they can start thriving and not just surviving, right? And your mission is so great for people in your community. Now, we talked about your community struggling. You are a beacon of light for them, and I'd love for you to, you know, you're gonna do it yourself. You know, you've been doing it for years, and I am a fan of yours, and continue to do what you're doing now for your community. I think is very commendable. You show a lot of empathy for people. It talks about, you know, the understanding you have for them, and knowing their struggles is really important. Not just somebody who, you know, you're somebody who's learning every day and learning about how you can best help your her patients. And so I really love that, you know, you're doing this for your community. Just really I'm happy for your patients that, you know, I wish I had somebody like you in my corner, right, that can talk to me about, you know, nutrition. You talk to me about, you know, just breathing, you know, talk to me about, you know, just, you know, leveling with me and what I can do to naturally feel great and feel amazing again, right? Amazing.
Sounds like you're buttering me up.
No. We need this, especially in Canada. We need practitioners like yourself that can really level with people and talk to them about their real struggles. Now, no, I'm not knocking, you know, anyone that's not doing it. I'm just saying I want an option for people like what you're doing for your people. So, which is great. Anything else that we missed here, Linda, that we want to talk about?
Well, I was going to say that another incredible Canadian is Dr. Jason Fung, who operates the fasting programs out of Toronto, and those, and like I said, when I went to that eating disorder treatment training, they were very anti-fasting as well. Whereas, I mean, to me, because of all the work that we've done and all the, all the research that we've done. And to me, it just seems like, okay, well, what is the purpose of body fat if it is not to be stored and then used and then stored again and then used? So it seems sometimes really ludicrous that the authorities in the world are telling people they got to not only eat 3 times a day, but snack 2 to 3 times a day. Like, you're constantly eating. And yet we have an obesity epidemic in both Canada and the US. It just seems so backwards. And I struggle with that, because I know deeply how, if someone approaches you and talks to you about your diet when you're not ready, it can be very hard to hear it. It can be very off-putting. But then I know, as a person that has struggled with overeating and obesity and all that stuff, that if I went to an eating disorder treatment program and they told me, by no means will restriction ever help you, you will regain it, you should still make room for all of this like junk, like non-nutritious food in your diet that's been formulated to hijack your satiety signals. If I was told that, I would leave. Because it takes away hope. It takes away, nobody that is obese and overweight and has knee problems and pain issues because of it, or can't sleep because of it, wants to be that way. And when I discovered the ketogenic diet and the low carb, and really learned all there was to know about what actual nutrition does our bodies need, it was such an awakening. And I know that for a lot of people that come to me for trauma work, they're not ready to approach that yet. And that's fine. If people got to do what people got to do. I'm still going to do the work that we need to do in terms of mental health approach. But I do know firsthand that using a diet like this, or eliminating some of the stuff that we certainly don't need in our diet, it just supplements all of that. It supports all of that, so that we can be better. We can start feeling better, sleeping better, functioning better, and have better quality relationships out of that.
Thunder Bay is so lucky to have you. I wish we had somebody like that here in Kitchener, Ontario, but we got a lot of work to do. But I'm so glad, for the people of Thunder Bay and your community, that you are somebody who is giving people, more options. If they're not ready, they're not ready. But for people who are, they have options, right? So glad that you are providing that for them, and kudos to your work. I congratulate you for such an amazing practice that you're doing right now for your community. It's a great practice that I want to let people know. If you're listening today, you're from Thunder Bay, Ontario, you got somebody in your corner here. Kelly, mentalhealth.com. Where can the people find you, Kelly?
KellyMentalHealth.com, or on our social medias. We actually just announced a gala that we're putting on May 5th. Actually, it's in support of the KMH Wellness Foundation. So that's that nonprofit I run that operates a fund for people to get private counseling in the area paid for. So it doesn't have to be with our clinic. It could be with any trauma counselor that's registered with our program. It's just a way of bridging the gap between people either having to choose between going to the emergency room or waiting 2 weeks to 4 weeks to be able to speak to someone. If we can get you into a private clinic in the city sooner, we will pay for it. So the gala is in support of that fund. And certainly we're always encouraged by more follows on social media, and our website's getting a revamp next month. So that's exciting too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing your story here today with our listeners. I am glad for people again. You are doing such an amazing work, and continue to do what you do. There's a lot of people that are needlessly struggling out there. And that's why I believe that your work, and just continue talking about it will, eventually, will become maybe a standard care for people one day, right? So great to have you, and good luck to your endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Linda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story here. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. It's actually been acting up for a couple of weeks, so I didn't want that to be our takeaway here. But you're such an amazing individual, and I didn't know about the struggles that you had, with obesity before, and that now, the ketogenic diet really helped you, create that freedom for you, and that's real for people, right? Food freedom is a real thing. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
and I congratulate you again. Really
Oh,
great work.
thank you so much for having me.